We made it to our final position preview. Relief pitchers up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5. Today is Monday, February 27th. I am Frank Sample, joined by Scott White. And let's start off with a little strategy, saves, closer discussion here. Scott, last year we had 1,232 total saves. However, we saw less at the 20 and 10 save thresholds than we have seen in years past. So that means more single-digit saves. And, that tells me there's a lot of committees still going on in baseball. So how are you handling saves overall in category leagues, and what is your relief pitcher strategy this season?
Yeah, so it's getting harder and harder to find reliable save sources. Part of that is because of more and more committees emerging, and they don't even really call them committees anymore. It's more, they use the term leverage. This is our high leverage reliever who isn't, the highest leverage situation isn't always the ninth inning. And they'll use him at different times, and that'll mean a couple different pitchers get saves for them. So there are a handful of teams like that. And then there are even more teams that are just bad, and they're not even trying to be good. And so nobody in their bullpen is good enough to close. And so they cycle through different choices. They're trying to land on a closer, and it just never happens for them. So that, when you put those together, this is the way I break down the closer situation right now. So there are 9 that I think are for sure their team's closer, very stable in the role, pretty good bets to get 30 plus saves, 9 of them. Then there are 6 others that pretty confident they're their team's closer, but a few more doubts creep in. So there's 6 of those, and that brings us to 15 total. Then there are 5 more that are at least the clear front runner going in, but they may very well be part of a committee, and you can't draft them thinking 30 saves. So that brings us to 20. 9 great ones, 6 additional ones that are close, and then 5 that are definitely behind in terms of save expectations, but are at least clear front runners and pretty good. Brings us to 20. That leaves 10 where there's basically no idea who the closer is, or if we do have an idea, it's nobody that we trust to hold on to the role. So I'm not one who likes to invest a lot in saves, but to a degree you have to. You have to go with the crowd. I'm not going to be drafting Edwin Diaz or Emmanuel Clase in round 2, 3, 4, whatever it ends up being. That's just, high-end hitters are scarce too. You need to grab them there. But that next part of the 9, I want to grab one of them before, just so I have that foundation of, okay, I know this guy's going to give me about 30 saves, and I'm not going to invest a lot in saves otherwise, but hopefully I can fill in the gaps around him as I'm playing the waiver wire, hopefully getting lucky now and then. At least I have that foundation to keep me competitive in saves, and hopefully that'll go okay in a Roto League.
And one of those 9, for me, and I assume for you, Scott, is the one that I target most, and it's Felix Bautista, who has an ADP of 104.4. Now, he is dealing with shoulder and knee injuries. He threw a bullpen session this past weekend at 80 to 85%, and his body reacted well to that. So I'm feeling confident that Felix Bautista will be good to go by the start of the season. And last year, he was amazing. Breakout rookie season. 20 games after Jorge Lopez got traded, Felix Bautista had 12 saves and just really good in that role. He throws really hard. They have the whole big entrance for him and everything. So I have confidence in Felix Bautista, and he's one of the 9 that goes latest of that group. So I do target him quite often. How about you?
Yeah, he tends to go second to last of that group of 9, so I end up with a fair amount of Felix Bautista too. He has been banged up this spring, but I think he's, I think he has top 5 potential. So I like Felix Bautista too. I'm going to go ahead and say the name that I said on the Full Length podcast, which is Kenley Jansen, if only because he's the last of those 9 to be drafted. His ERA tends to be a bit higher than most of them, and of course he's getting up there in age, but he's been doing it for a long time, and the Red Sox signed him explicitly to do this, so I think his role is very safe.
All right. How about a bust, Scott? Someone that you are avoiding at relief pitcher.
I'm avoiding Scott Barlow of the Royals, who emerged as their closer for the final 2/3 or so of last year, got more than 20 saves. I assume he'd just pick up where he left off if Mike Matheny was still the manager of the Royals, but their new manager was actually part of the Rays staff, the Rays notorious for the closer committee. And not only that, they signed Aroldis Chapman to a low dollar 1-year deal. I presume the thinking being they can restore him and flip him at the deadline. But that's going to work best if he's closing for them, right? And he's one of the best closers of their generation. So I think there are a lot of threats to Barlow being the full-time closer that we're drafting him to be.
All right, and the bust for me is Daniel Bard. And if you want to find out why, then you can listen to our full-length podcast, Fantasy Baseball Today, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Audacy app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.